So in this segment we'll be discussing the concept of Khalifa.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sayyid Ali. I thought it would be useful just to kind of understand the concept of what Khalifa is. And this is from the very famous al-Hakam by Muawiyah. It's a very, very good translation by Professor Wafa H. Wahaba. And I'm just quoting from page 3. The imamate or supreme leadership is intended as vicarate of the prophecy in upholding the faith and managing the affairs of the world. So that's the important role of the Khalifa. He then, apologies, just by way of background, Muawiyah was the chief judge during the era of the Abbasids. So this is regarded as one of the classic works of jurisprudence, essentially on leadership and the role of political positions and posts. So that's the definition of what imamate is. He then kind of goes into the importance of obeying the Khalifa, verses of the Quran, etc. I think we could probably touch on that later. But I think in terms of what I found very interesting is he kind of sets out, if you, like in this day and age, any job you apply has to have a job description. So he kind of sets out what the perfect JD is for the Khalifa. There are 7 conditions for supreme leadership. First, justice or probity with all its attributes. Second, knowledge conducive to the exercise of independent judgment in crisis or decision making. Third, sound hearing, vision, speech, so that perception could serve as correct basis for action. Fourth, physical fitness and freedom from handicaps to move in terms of movement. Fifth, wise handling of subjects and able maintenance of their interests. Sixth, dauntless courage in defence of the homeland. And seventh, being of Quraysh descent. So those are the 7 qualities. The JD, if you tick this, you've got the qualities to be the head of state. And I think it kind of links to the previous episode, where we were touching on the fact that Abdullah ibn Umar was an individual that gave Bayah to the first 2 caliphs without any form of hesitation. And then the third one. And then we come to the Caliphate of Amir al-Mu'mineen, and we have sudden reluctance to do anything. Neither does he want to be a Khalifa, neither does he even want to accept his authority in any way. Because obviously the concept is if the Khalifa orders you to do something, you do so, because in fact Muawiyah actually says on page 3, according to the revealed law, however, he must submit to the conduct of his affairs, as in the people, to the leader sanctioned by the faith. As God Almighty says, O you who believe, obey Allah, the Messenger, and those who are in authority. So that's Surah Nisa, verse 59. He thus made it obligatory for us to obey those in authority, namely the sovereign in power over us. So really there's 2 issues here. Number 1, there's a 7-pronged criteria to ascertain who should lead the head of state. And you tell, let's appeal to justice here. Which of these criteria did Ibn Umar not have? Which led to Abdullah ibn Umar thinking he's not worthy to be given Bayah. If we talk about justice, there's traditions where...
The best of judge.
Exactly. My hand and Ali's hand are equal in dispensing justice. There's traditions. And then, obviously, you're right, best of judge in terms of knowledge. There's ample traditions about his superiority.
Yeah, but you seem to forget one important point there. And that is apparently he didn't want to give the Bayah because there was fitna taking place.
Yeah.
But then he later gives his Bayah to
other individuals.
Who there was even more controversy in terms of their Bayah.
But also the fact of the matter is there was no, like we've said in the previous episode, if anyone's missed that, please do review that, because it's interlinked with this one. But in terms of fitna, there was no immediate fitna when Amir al-Mu'mineen comes to power. Uthman has been killed, Amir al-Mu'mineen has taken the reins of power. What's the reluctance for Ibn Umar to give Bayah when everybody else has? There are only 7 individuals, and they always say that the general concept is you need to go with Ijma of the Sahaba. In fact, Ibn Arabi is very, what can I say, I find an amazing book to read, very offensive, the way it's been written, Wasim ibn Qasim, which dealt with the upheaval during the reign of, during his early history. And one of the arguments he presents was that Yazid's caliphate was valid because 40 people, he got the Bayah 40 individuals, Sahaba. And here we have overwhelmingly companions approaching Amir al-Mu'mineen. Don't forget, at the time, Talha and Zubayr hadn't backtracked and gone over and started the fitna and Basra. Everyone had accepted him, except 7.
Yeah, if I go into the narrations now regarding the importance of a leader and what that entails. So this is from Sahih Bukhari, Volume 1, Hadith number 662 and 664. The narration says, narrated Anas, the Prophet said, listen and obey your chief, even if an Ethiopian who has a head like a raisin were made your chief. We go to Hadith number 664 in Volume 1, page number 337. Narrated Anas ibn Malik, the Prophet said to Abu Dhar, listen and obey your chiefs, even if he's an Ethiopian with a head like a raisin. I mean, I've never come across an Ethiopian who has a head like a raisin. I mean, personally, I find that quite insulting. But, this is no offence to any, the black brothers who are listening.
From that region, yeah.
This is Volume 4, Sahih Bukhari, Volume number 4. Hadith number 203 and Hadith 204. This is interesting. Ironically, the narrator is Ibn Umar. Narrated Ibn Umar. The Prophet said, it is obligatory for one to listen and to obey to the ruler's orders, unless the orders involve one in disobedience. But if an act of disobedience is imposed, one should not listen to obey to it. Again, let's go to Sahih Bukhari. This is Sahih Bukhari, Volume 9, Hadith number 257. Page number 193, and it says, narrated Ibn Abbas, the Prophet said, if somebody sees his Muslim ruler doing something he disapproves of, he should be patient, for whoever becomes separate from the Muslim group, even for a span, and then he dies, he will die as those who died in the pre-Islamic period of ignorance. Meaning that if somebody sees a Muslim ruler doing something he disapproves, he should be patient.
Yeah.
And if he separates from the main, body of people, he will die the death of ignorance. I don't know if you want to elaborate on that particular narration.
I mean, to be honest, it speaks for itself. How essential, the significance of this tradition. You think about it, that if you don't obey, if you don't come into line, toe the line. If you don't toe the line, the consequences are so severe. You die the death. What's the
death of ignorance?
What is the death of ignorance? It's not the death of a person.
Well, apparently the death of ignorance means that it was a death related to a time when, in the time of ignorance, they never used to, pledge their allegiance to a leader. But, any leader during the time of Jahiliyyah would have not been a Muslim anyway.
Exactly.
So,
if you die the death from that period, if you look at the tradition...
I'll read it to you again. This is actually a similar one, Hadith 258. Narrated Abdullah, the Prophet said, a Muslim has to listen and to obey the orders of whether he likes it or not, as long as the orders involve not one in a disobedience, but an act of disobedience is imposed, one should not listen to obey to it. And prior to that, obviously anybody who refuses to pledge allegiance to a leader, he will die the death of Jahiliyyah.
Exactly, the death of Jahiliyyah from that era. I know there's people come up with unusual types of excuses on this area.
I mean, I have read some commentaries where, I think Sayyuti and Ibn Hajar Asqalani, again, these are opinions. Isn't it interesting? When we quote an opinion of a certain scholar, they'll be like, oh, no, it's an opinion of a scholar. Opinion of a scholar is not hujjah. But these are clear-cut texts.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Someone who dies the death of Jahiliyyah. What is Jahiliyyah? Jahiliyyah is a period when you was not a Muslim, isn't it? That's what Jahiliyyah, that was an era when people had not embraced Islam. So if you die like the death of Jahiliyyah, you are not dying the death of a believer.
No. I mean, even Ibn Umar, he had that opinion, and we will come to that later time. What did Ibn Umar, what was his perception of dying as the death of Jahiliyyah?
I think you're right. When we come later on, we can park the bus when it comes to the issue of what scholars are saying. At the end of the day, ultimately, the main authority would be how the Sahaba interpreted the narration or used it. So we can leave that, and let's see exactly how Ibn Umar, when we come to that.
So I'm just going to read the final narration. I didn't bring my copy of Say Muslim today, but again, as I said earlier, we will try to include all the narrations within the description of this video. If not, you're more than welcome to contact the channel via YouTube, and somebody will send out the scans.
And besides, saying Muslim is online, I'm sure.
Yeah, of course. If you go online nowadays, you can use some search engines.
And
you can find any of these references which I quoted from Bukhari today. So this is the last final reference I like to read. And the only reason why I stuck to Bukhari and Muslim is because, generally speaking, these two books are considered to be the most authentic. Of course, these same narrations are repeated throughout the 6 major books, and later on into traditions related around history and what was circumstances. Jurisprudence. So this is from Sahih Muslim. So it's been narrated through a different chain of transmitters on the authority of Hudayfa ibn Yaman, who said, the Messenger of Allah, no doubt, we had an evil time, i.e. so the times of Jahiliyyah, the times of ignorance, and God brought us a good time, i.e. the Islamic period through which we are now living. Will there be a bad time after this good time? He, the Prophet, said, yes. I said, will there be a good time after this bad time? He said, yes. I said, will there be a bad time after this good time? He said, yes. I said, how? Whereupon he said, there will be leaders. This is very crucial here.
Yeah.
There will be leaders who will not lead by my guidance, and who will not adopt my ways, meaning not follow his sunnah. There will be among them men who will have hearts of devils in the bodies of human beings. I said, what should I do, Messenger of Allah, if I happen to live in this time? He replied, you will listen to the Amir and carry out his orders, even if your back is flogged and your wealth is snatched. This is in Sahih Muslim, Book 20, Hadith 4554. Which
again leads to the question, why did Abdullah ibn Umar not obey Amir al-Mu'mineen? Why did he think he had the right to avoid him?
He was not telling him to sin.
Exactly. In fact, I think it kind of links back to the concept of ordering the good and forbidding the evil. What was Amir al-Mu'mineen trying to do? He was trying to have someone intervene and address a problem to quash it there and then. You know what, if you've got the ability, I think, apologies, some of it we touched on the previous episode, but we need to think about this. If an individual has the ability to stop fitna, if he has the ability to stop bloodshed, because you're talking about the area of fitna, if he had the ability to quash it, why on earth wouldn't that individual then go and stop it? Why is he better trying to play a type of a Gandhi style, ascetic?
You know what, it's interesting though, because they even say that there was some bribery that was even offered to him.
Yeah.
Muawiyah offered him bribery to accept his khilafah. But whether or not he accepted it, we don't know. Apparently he refused. He refused to take this money and said, is
I'm worth more than that.
Yeah, I'm worth more than that. Whether or not that means give me more money.
Yeah, exactly.
Or, whether or not that means...
Yeah, we can't really guess on that, yeah.
Yeah, so... I want to go into the concept now of what a baghi is. Now, so we have these clear narrations about what a leader is, what a emir is, how we should submit to them.
No matter what.
No matter what.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we do have these narrations that say, look, if they force you to sin, then you don't need to act upon it. So now, if we take a step back.
Well, the real question is then, was Amir al-Mu'min forcing Ibn Umar into a sin when he told him to go and use his influence in Syria?
But having said that, if we look at, what do we regard as, what is, we have this word called baghi, a transgressor, one who refrains from really, you could say, pledging allegiance.
That's correct,
to the leader, or one who rebels against the state. What do we understand about this concept about baghi? Okay, so I'd like to read out what a baghi is, and this is from a famous work, Dar al-Mukhtar, by Muhammad Amin ibn Abdin, and he says, a baghi commonly means to demand. It's commonly used to refer to the one that demands unlawfully, such as in terms of injustice and tyranny. From a legal perspective, it refers to one that rebels against a legitimate imam without having any legal justification for doing so. So this is from Dar al-Mukhtar, page number 351. Do you want to elaborate on what a baghi is?
But I think also, if you look at books of Al-Sunnah's jurisprudence works, they also mention that Baghi, you can't even read the funeral prayers of a Baghi.
You can't even read a funeral prayer of transgressor, rebel.
Because he's deemed to have
one who rebels against a legitimate harm.
That's the punishment that he will face, which kind of makes one understand when we look at the narrations of Karbala. And I'm sorry, kind of transgressing, kind of working away from it, slightly, but it is relevant to think that.
Is that why they left him on the same Islam's body on the plains of Karbala?
And there was no funeral. Does that not symbolise the fact how he was regarded? He was regarded enemy of the state and a bargain. Okay.
A Salafi scholar, al-Albani's famous works in the authentication of the famous works Jami al-Saghir, volume 1, page 356. It says, Al-Harith ibn al-Harith al-Ashari said, the Prophet said, whosoever separates from the Jama'ah, okay? Jama'ah can be a majority body, it can be a majority group. But the Jama'ah can also refer to a small group as well, as long as they're upon truth. It says, whoever separates from the Jama'ah, even to the extent of a handspan, has verily removed the rope of Islam from his or her neck until he or she returns to the Jama'ah. In Arwa al-Ghalib, he says, volume 2, page number 1073, hadith number 6249, he says, whosoever comes to you while your affairs are managed by a single man, seeking to break the unity, and separates from the Jama'ah, then kill him or her.
It's very clear. In fact, this is interesting. I've got another book here, Sheikh Nasser al-Aql, obviously one of the Salafi scholars, the general precepts of Al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah. I think it kind of expands on this point, saying that without even the concept of the Imam, just the concept of Jama'ah itself, he's written. And the way that he's recorded it, I shall just read you. Whoever leaves the Jama'ah, then it is obligatory to give him sincere counsel and advice, to call to him to what is correct, to discuss with him in a good manner, and to establish the proofs to him. If he repents, then fine. Otherwise, he is to be punished in accordance with what the sacred law requires, which links back to the thesis that you just quoted.
This narration is found even in Sahih Muslim, for example. So again, Sahih Muslim, book number 19, hadith number 4309. Abu Sa'id that said, the Messenger of Allah said, on the day of judgment, there will be a flag fixed behind the buttocks of every person guilty of breach of faith. So, those people who will rebel against the head of states, looking to cause disunity or breaking away from the majority body, the punishment for such individual would be beheading. Now, it makes you think whether or not it was for these very narrations that they beheaded Imam Hussein.
Yeah, well actually, you know what?
Or even the killing of Usman.
It's interesting, you just said that very point. If you look at Ibn Arabi, his Defense Against Disaster has been translated into English, Aisha Beauty's book, Awasim and Qawasim, when he's dealing with the fitnas and trying to provide a defence for the actions of the companions. His very controversial lines, Ibn Khaldun has recorded it in his book, Tarikh al-Muqaddimah. He mentions that Ibn Arabi's offensive term, that Hussein ibn Ali was killed by the sword of his grandfather. So what he's saying is, there were hadiths which essentially meant that he was a rebel and he was killed because it was coming to him. So those traditions that you just quoted are exactly what
he stated.
Well, it's interesting that Aisha Beauty didn't actually translate that offensive line. But Ibn Khaldun mentions and he quotes that source.
Yeah, so I just want to sum up with one more narration, and this is taken from Sahih Muslim, book 20, hadith number 4568. Abu Sayyid al-Khudri said, the Messenger of Allah said, when the oath of allegiance has been taken for two Khalifas, kill the one from who the oath was taken later.
Yeah. That's very, very significant. Because if you look at the history as we see it, and we see that Amir al-Mu'mineen is the Khalifa, and Muawiya refuses to give him bay'ah and says, I'm the man, I am the Khalifa. He refused to accept him as a Khalifa. and he said that I'm the one who deserves to lead the state. So really, he was entitled to be put to death. But then again, we have the situation where Ibn Umar refuses to give bayah, even though now Muawiyah is essentially an open Baghi, isn't it?
Yeah,
and
of course,
there's traditions, obviously, when we discuss Muawiyah, but obviously we know for a fact, Al-Sunnah accept that Muawiyah, they deem him the first Baghi in Islam, his party, because of the narrations of Ammar bin Yasir, isn't it? That Baghi group will kill him, and Muawiyah headed that group. And yet we see a very kind of relaxed, almost nonchalant type of view about Muawiyah, to say, oh, well, let bygones be bygones, let's not talk about it. But surely the whole concept of Sharia is to apply it to whoever transgresses.
Even in this day and age, you know, with the viewpoint of the 12 Shias is that, Imam Mahdi alayhi salam, may Allah has hastened his appearance, he's in occultation.
Yeah.
So, the Shias of today would have pledged allegiance to him. However, if you look at the other schools, yes, there are some sects within Sunnism that do believe the Mahdi is born. They might not make a majority view, but they exist. But they are still waiting for the Mahdi. So if today, in this day and age, Sunnis had pledged their allegiance to somebody, and the Mahdi was to come along, they would have to kill him.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. I didn't even think of it from that perspective, Sayyid, but you're right. He wouldn't be the legitimate Khalifa.
But so we have these narrations that exist now. They're there quite clearly in the book.
Yeah.
About pledging allegiance to a leader. The Sahaba believed the importance of it so much so that they abandoned the Prophet's funeral.
Yeah.
How do present day Sunnis act on these traditions? I know some organizations, like for example some Salafi movements like Hizb ut-Tahrir, they do pledge allegiance to their leaders. But having said that,
Where do we go from here? It's true, it's true.
and if you don't pledge allegiance, you'll die the death of Jahiliyyah.
Exactly. So why are you allowing that to happen? And these are all questions that I think in the next episode we'll probably go through discussing that, because you'll see how these very traditions were utilised by none other than Abdullah ibn Umar to essentially issue takfir against the companions of the Prophet. Peace be upon him.
I just want to finish on one narration before we conclude on this episode, and it's a very interesting narration. It's from Sahih Muslim, book number 20, hadith number 4567. It's narrated on the same authority, which was Abu Bakr, who said similarly, but adding, kill all of them. I heard the Messenger of Allah say, when you're holding to one single man as your leader, you should behead, kill, who seeks to undermine your solidity or disrupt your unity.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting, isn't it, Sayyid Ali? Sometimes I wonder, I think in the first part we talked about Umar saying that if there's a difference of opinion when during the Shura,
Crash his
kill
skull.
them. Doesn't it kind of link back to this tradition?
Yeah, it
that
does.
there's a majority opinion, albeit 4 against 2, even they should be put to death.
I mean, what type of concept of leadership do they have? It's
Exactly.
fascinating.
It is fascinating, and it's all linked to basically eliminating any form of opposition, any opposing opinion, by putting people to death. But
So-
we see how Abdullah ibn Umar is an individual who has no loyalty whatsoever to Amir al-Mu'mineen, despite the presence of these narrations about obedience. And yet, in the next episode, we'll discuss, see how he's very loyal to treacherous Fasik Khalifas.
Okay, thank you very much for joining us today. I think we're going to sum it up, and inshallah you can join us next week, where we will be discussing the incident of Karbala and Harra and the involvement of Ibn Umar during this period. Assalamu alaikum.